Rain fell hard on the iron plains of Gorvath as the alien crowd screamed for blood. Massive spiked poles stood at the center of the arena, and tied between them was a girl with silver skin, torn armor, and wrists chained above her head. 4 beasts, chained at the corners, growled and pulled, ready to tear her apart. She didn't scream. She only stared at the sky, lips trembling in silence. The drums pounded louder. A royal horn blew. The high judge raised his clawed hand, signaling for the quartering to begin. The beasts growled and the chains tightened. In the stands, nobles and warriors from many species watched with cold eyes. The girl's crime was simple: refusing a prince's hand in marriage. Refusal was dishonor. Dishonor meant death. But one figure in the crowd didn't move. He wasn't noble. He wasn't invited. His armor was battered. His boots were muddy. His human scent made those near him cringe. He was nobody here. But his eyes burned with something the rest had forgotten: rage. The chains jerked and her arms stretched with bone-snapping force. Blood poured down her sides. She grit her teeth but never begged. The judge smiled. The crowd roared. But the human was already moving. He didn't wait for permission. He jumped from the stands, landing hard on the stone floor below. Guards shouted. Blasters were raised, but his rifle fired first. 2 guards dropped before they knew what hit them. His boots sprinted across the blood-soaked sand as the chains grew tighter. One beast lunged forward, nearly pulling her leg off. The crowd gasped. This was forbidden. Humans weren't allowed here, but no one moved fast enough. The human threw a plasma grenade near the chains, blasting the metal anchors apart. The beast staggered back, confused. The girl collapsed, barely conscious. Blasters fired again. He rolled behind the poles, shielding her with his body. His armor sizzled as plasma rounds burned against it. He aimed carefully, shooting back one by one. The judge shouted orders, but the guards hesitated. No one expected this. No one knew who he was. He lifted the girl in his arms and whispered something in her language. Her eyes barely opened. She didn't know him. But she saw something strange in his face. He wasn't trying to be a hero, he was angry. Not at her, but at what they were doing to her. With the beasts confused and the guards scrambling, he sprinted to the gate. More guards blocked the way. He didn't stop. He fired low, dropped them fast, and kept moving. A gatekeeper swung a blade at him. He caught it with his bare hand, groaned, and broke the blade in 2. The exit opened as a stolen keycard slid through. The crowd was silent now, confused, unsure if this was part of the execution. The human vanished into the tunnel, holding the bleeding alien girl against his chest. Outside the arena, the storm had turned wild. Lightning cracked above as he pulled her into a small transport ship. She coughed and trembled, but she was alive. He placed her gently on the bed inside, locked the doors, and started the engines. The ship rose shakily from the ground, slipping away into the clouds. Alarms rang across the palace. The high judge slammed his fist against the throne. The prince, who had ordered her death, was speechless. No one had ever defied them like that, especially not a human. They were considered weak, backward, barely more than slaves in this system. But that day, something changed. Somewhere deep in space, in a ship not built for comfort, a girl who was supposed to be dead opened her eyes slowly. She stared at the ceiling, then at the man sitting beside her, cleaning a bloodied knife. She tried to speak. He placed a hand on her shoulder and shook his head. "Rest," he said. "You're safe now." But even he didn't know what he had just started. The ship drifted through the edge of the nebula belt, hidden from scanners. Inside, the silence was heavy. The girl, now cleaned and bandaged, lay asleep on a bunk. Her breathing was shallow but steady. The human sat in the pilot's seat, watching the radar, eyes red from no sleep. He hadn't even asked her name. Every few hours, she twitched or whispered something in her language. Words like chains, death, fire. He didn't understand them, but he understood the fear. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of war survivors. He had carried too many just like her. Some lived, some didn't. The next morning, she opened her eyes fully. Her muscles were weak, but her voice was steady. She asked one thing. Why? Did you save me? He didn't answer at first. He just poured her a glass of water and placed it beside her. Then he leaned against the wall and looked away. They were going to kill you for saying no, he finally said. That's not justice. She stared at him for a long time. No one had spoken like that in her world. Strength was survival. Choices belonged to the powerful. She was a daughter of a noble house once, but her rank was lost the moment she rejected the prince. He owned her fate now. At least that's how it was supposed to work. You will die for this, she said, voice flat. He gave a tired smile. Probably, but not today. He showed her the medical patch he had used on her chest. The gashes were closing, though deep, scars would remain. She looked at the patch, then at his burned hands. He had pressed them on her wounds when the bleeding wouldn't stop. His pain must have been immense, but he hadn't screamed. You're insane, she said. Maybe, he replied. Hours later, she stood shakily, refusing help. She was trained to fight, to never show weakness, but her legs gave out. He caught her before she hit the floor. She pushed him away with what little strength she had. I am no one's burden, she said sharply. Good, he said. Then get strong fast, because they'll come for us. She narrowed her eyes. Why risk everything for me? I am not your people. I didn't do it for your people, he said. I did it because no one else would. The ship jolted suddenly. Warning lights blinked. Something was following them. He rushed to the controls. A patrol cruiser had found their trail. The girl's face turned pale. That ship belonged to the royal court. It meant death if they were caught. She grabbed a blade from the weapon rack and moved to the back of the ship. Her movements were weak but focused. She had been trained in close quarters combat. She would rather die fighting than be dragged back, in chains. He locked the ship into stealth mode, but the cruiser was gaining fast. He flipped a switch and revealed a hidden tunnel near an asteroid field. The path was dangerous, filled with space debris and gravitational traps. No normal pilot would risk it. He did. The ship dove into the maze, dodging spinning rocks and magnetic pulls. The girl gripped the wall, eyes wide. For the first time, she realized this human wasn't just reckless. He was skilled. He had flown, in war zones before. Maybe worse. The cruiser followed, but not far. A wrong turn snapped one of its wings against a sharp asteroid. Flames burst from its side. The enemy ship turned back, damaged. Inside the small ship, they sat in silence once more. You don't fly like a smuggler, she said. I'm not. Then who are you? He didn't answer. He looked at the stars and let the silence speak for him. She watched him longer than she intended. There was something familiar in the way he stared into the void, like someone searching for something he lost long ago. Neither of them knew what would come next. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone. The stars outside the ship had changed. What was once royal space had become outlaw territory. Scanners picked up wrecks drifting in silence, remains of ships that never escaped this part of the galaxy. No patrols came here. No help either. Inside the ship, the girl sat on the floor, sharpening a blade. Her movements were slow but controlled. Her wounds still ached, but the pain kept her grounded. She kept glancing at the human. He was working on a panel, fixing burnt wires from the engine's last push through the asteroid field. He hadn't spoken much in hours. He moved like someone who had done this many times before, like someone who didn't expect thanks. She finally asked, "You've done this before?" He nodded. Rescued people who were about to die? Yeah. Not always successful? Were they all women? She asked, her voice carrying weight. No, he said calmly. Some were kids, some were soldiers, some were prisoners. She lowered her blade. Why do you care so much? He looked up, eyes tired but sharp. Because I used to be one of them. She didn't ask more, not yet. But in her mind, the image of him, tired, scarred, calm in chaos, started to shift. He wasn't a fool risking his life for nothing. He was a survivor. Like her, as the ship drifted toward a small moon. He turned the engines off to hide their signal. The moon was quiet, covered in frost. No cities, no ships, just old ruins and caves. Perfect for laying low. They landed near a frozen ridge. "I need parts," he said. "And this place has old tech. Stay inside." She didn't argue. Her legs were still weak, but the moment he left, she stood. She moved to the cockpit and watched him walk across the frozen surface. He carried only a knife and a pulse lantern. Wind howled around him. Still, he walked like the cold didn't touch him. She looked away and opened the storage bay. Inside, she found what looked like a journal, not digital but paper. Strange. She opened it carefully. Inside were notes, names, sketches, dozens of faces, some crossed out, some with words next to them like lost, saved, or too late. One page had a drawing of her face. It was rough, drawn in haste but clear. Below it, one line was written, "I won't let them take her." She froze. The date was from a week before he rescued her. He had known about her. She closed the book quickly and leaned back. Her heart raced. He hadn't just been in the crowd by chance, he had planned this. He had come for her. Outside, he entered the ruins. The walls were covered in symbols from a time before the Empire. He searched quietly, pulling cables and power cores from broken panels. A low growl echoed through the cave behind him. He stopped, turned slowly. A beast with glassy eyes and frozen breath stepped from the dark. It was tall, armored in bone-like plates and hungry. He reached for his knife, but the beast lunged first. Inside the ship, alarms blared. She ran to the screen and saw movement. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed a shock rifle from the wall, pushed her pain aside, and ran into the cold. She followed the trail quickly, breath heavy, steps sharp. She found him pinned against a wall, bleeding from the shoulder, knife stuck in the beast's side. He was losing. She aimed without a word and fired. The shot hit the beast's eye, dropping it in one blast. The human gasped for breath and collapsed. She ran to him, checking his wounds. "You didn't listen," he muttered, eyes half closed. "Neither did you," she said. They sat together in the snow, breath fogging in the frozen air. For the first time, he smiled at her. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. She helped him stand. Together, they walked back to the ship. Something had changed between them. Not trust, not yet, but something close. His shoulder was bleeding badly, but he insisted on walking back without help. She let him. Part of her wanted to prove she could still fight, but part of her was watching him in a new way. He had taken a direct hit from the beast, and yet he stayed calm. He didn't cry out. He didn't beg, just grit his teeth and kept moving. Once inside the ship, she helped him sit on the edge of the bunk. He pulled out a medical kit, handed it to her, and said nothing. She opened it, her hands steady even as blood soaked through his shirt. She cleaned the wound and patched it, her fingers brushing against his skin only once. "You knew I'd be there," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "Yes." "For how long?" "Since I heard the sentence," he answered. She paused. "Why me?" He looked up, meeting her eyes. "Because the way they treat your kind, it's wrong. And because I was there when your father died." She stepped back, her breath caught in her throat. "What?" 10 years ago, in the battle at Harkon Ridge, he said. "I was part of the strike team sent to evacuate survivors. I pulled your father's body from the rubble. He was already gone." Her legs felt weak again, not from injury but from shock. "He had a pendant," the human continued. "Gold. Your family crest, I kept it. Didn't know who he was until I saw you in the arena." He pulled a small chain from his pocket. A gold pendant hung from it, tarnished but clear. She reached out with shaking fingers, touching it like a ghost. It was real. "That was his," she whispered. "I know," he said. "That's when I knew I had to get you out." She sat down beside him, heart pounding. The anger she had carried for years began to mix with confusion. Her father had died a hero, but no one told her how. She had been a child, hidden away, then used for politics, then punished. She looked at him again. A human, from a species mocked as weak, had honored her father more than her own people. "You could have sold this," she said. "Traded it for food, fuel." "I don't sell honor," he replied. They didn't speak for a while. Outside, the frost moon was quiet and stars blinked through the window. For the first time, the silence didn't feel cold. The next morning, he was already up, working on the engines again. His arm was stiff, but he moved with quiet purpose. She made food from the supplies. It wasn't much, but it was warm. She handed him a plate without speaking. He nodded in thanks. They sat together, eating quietly. The distance between them had changed. Not quite friends, but no longer strangers. She finally asked, "What's your name?" He glanced at her. "Ren," she repeated it, letting the sound roll over her tongue. It was simple, rough, human, but it fit him. "I'm Yella," she said. "I know," he replied. That made her smile, even if just a little. Later that day, a signal crackled through the ship's comm, faint, encrypted, but clear enough. "Fugitive ship last seen near Sector 10. Female target priority. Reward has doubled." They looked at each other. "They'll never stop," she said. "No," Ren replied, "but I have a plan." He pulled up a star chart and pointed to a system deep in the neutral zone. "There's someone there, an old contact. If anyone can clear your name and strike back, it's her." Yella narrowed her eyes. "Another human?" He grinned. "No, but she owes me." They started prepping the ship. Armor reinforced, weapons reloaded, scanners checked. Yella stood straighter now. Her steps no longer wobbled, her voice no longer shook. She was ready to fight again. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't fighting alone. The ship pierced through layers of ion clouds, flying low and silent toward a dead planet called Varnus. It was once a trade hub, now reduced to shadows and dust. Nothing lived here long. Pirates came and went. Slavers dealt under the surface. But deep inside, someone still owed a favor. Ren guided the ship into a jagged valley between black rock spires. Yella watched from the co-pilot seat. Her armor had been patched and cleaned. Her scars still hurt, but her hands were steady. She wasn't the same girl who had been chained in the arena. As the ship landed, Rain stood up slowly. His wound was healing but stiff. He pulled a hood over his head and passed a small blade to Yella. "Hide that in your boot," he said. "No one here speaks kindness." She nodded. "Good. I'm done speaking kindness too." They stepped into the cold wind of Varnus, boots crunching over ash and rust. Buildings around them leaned like broken teeth. Neon signs flickered weakly, and strange eyes watched from windows. Ren walked with purpose, leading her through twisted alleys until they reached a locked hatch. He knocked in a pattern, a metal door slid open, revealing a short alien woman with blue skin and long silver hair tied in wires. "Tari," Ren said. She snorted. "You owe me a new ship, remember?" "And you owe me a life," he replied. Tari rolled her eyes and stepped aside. "Get in, quickly." Inside, her base was lined with screens and old tech. Drones buzzed through the air. Yella kept close to Ren, scanning the place. Tari's voice cut through the noise. "So, this the girl the whole royal net is hunting?" Yella didn't flinch. "Yes, the one who said no," Tari smirked. "Good. About time someone did." Reen handed her a chip with the warrant data. "They're offering enough credits to buy a moon, which means they're scared." "They should be," Tari replied, plugging the chip into her console. "Because this girl's bloodline isn't just noble, it's royal." Yella froze. "That's not possible." Ren looked at her carefully. "You didn't know?" "My father was a general," she said. "That's all." Tari pointed to a file on the screen. "Not just a general. He was brother to the emperor, which makes you next in line." Yella's breath caught. The room spun slightly. Reen reached out but didn't touch her. She stood still, processing the weight of truth. They tried to erase that part of you, he said. That's why they wanted you dead. Yella clenched her fists. They won't get the chance again. Tari leaned back. With your DNA, we could unlock old codes, secret archives, even ships that still answer to royal blood. You could start a war if you wanted. I don't want war, Yella said. But they already started it, Reen added. Suddenly, alarms flashed across the base. Tari cursed. They found you. How? Reen growled. Someone leaked. Maybe a drone. Maybe your ship's trace. Doesn't matter. They're here. Yella pulled her blade. How many? Enough to burn this entire block, Tari said. You need to leave now. But Ren shook his head. No. We make a stand here. Tari raised a brow. You'll die. Not before I finish what I started, he said. Yella stepped beside him. Then we fight together. Outside, engines roared. Troop carriers landed on rooftops. Soldiers in gold armor moved through the streets. But inside that small base, something powerful had awakened. Not a rebellion, not revenge, something more dangerous. Hope. The ground shook as gunships hovered overhead. Dust rained from the ceiling as explosions rocked the far end of the street. The enemy had surrounded the area. Ren moved quickly, loading energy packs into old pulse rifles while Yella checked the door locks. Tari worked her fingers across her control board, rerouting power to defense turrets mounted along the base. They'll breach from the west, Tari said. I can slow them down, but not for long. Yella glanced at Ren. He gave a short nod. They both knew what was coming. They're not here to arrest me, she said quietly. They're here to erase me. Reen handed her a blaster. Then let's make sure they fail. The first wave hit fast. 2 soldiers kicked down the alley, gate scanning for targets. Yella dropped them both before they could aim. She didn't hesitate. She didn't shake. Her hands were steady, eyes sharp. She was no longer the chained girl crying in silence. She was becoming what her blood had hidden. More troops stormed the lower entrance. Ren took point, blasting with expert aim, shifting from cover to cover like a ghost. Tari triggered traps and turrets, frying armor and melting steel. But there were too many. We can't hold, Tari shouted. They've got a heavy unit coming in. Reen scanned the radar. One dot moved faster than the others, larger, closing in hard. It was a mechanized juggernaut, built to clear bunkers, like this. Once it reached them, the walls wouldn't matter. We fall back to the tunnel, he said. Tari, you two. She hesitated. That tunnel's one way. I won't make it back. You stay, you die, he said. She stared at him. Ren, I owe you a life. Let me pay it now. He opened his mouth, but she was already turning back to her console. Go, she yelled. Ren grabbed Yella's wrist and ran. Explosions followed. The building cracked behind them. A last look over the shoulder showed Tari standing at her post, a soft smile on her face before the wall of flame swallowed her whole. Yella turned away, heart pounding. Ren didn't speak. His jaw was tight, eyes forward. They reached the tunnel. Hatch slid down the ladder and sprinted through the tight underground path lit only by flickering lights. At the end of the tunnel was a small hangar, Tari's escape plan. A single fast ship just big enough for 2. Ren powered it up. Yella slid into the co-pilot seat, face pale, eyes cold. She knew, Yella said. She chose, Ren replied. The ship shot out of the ground just as the base collapsed behind them. Enemy ships gave chase, but Tari had left a parting gift. Ion mines lined the exit path, disabling several pursuers. The rest fell back, unable to follow through the debris. They flew in silence for a long time. Yella finally broke it. You knew who I was, but you didn't tell me. I needed you to remember on your own, he said. Because power handed to someone is weak, but power claimed, that's real. She looked at him. And now? Now it's yours, he said. She turned to the controls. Set course for the old capital. There's something I need from there. Ren frowned. It's deep in royal space, heavily guarded. "I know," she said. "That's why they'll never expect me to return." Ren slowly smiled. "Now, you're thinking like a ruler." She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the stars ahead. Once she had been a noble girl trying to survive. Now she was ready to rise. The royal capital floated in the dark like a crown of fire. Massive towers stretched toward the stars, glowing with gold and blue lights. Dozens of warships hovered above it, scanning every approach. It was the center of the Empire's power, and the last place anyone expected to see her return. But Yella wasn't hiding anymore. Ren guided the ship behind a cargo convoy. The outer patrols scanned each vessel, but their fake clearance codes worked. Tari's final gift still protected them. As they entered the docking ring, Yella put on a dark cloak over her armor. She covered her face but didn't lower her posture. She walked tall, like someone who belonged here. "Where are we going?" Reen asked. "To the Hall of Names," she said. "If I can reach the record vault, I can prove who I am. Not just with blood, but with truth." Ren nodded. "And then?" "Then I call the ones still loyal to my family," she said. "If any are left." The corridors of the capital were polished and full of guards. Yella moved through them like a shadow. No one noticed her. She knew these halls. She had once walked them as a child before being sent away. She knew where the cracks were, the broken tiles, the quiet turns. They reached the Hall of Names just before dawn. Inside were endless statues of royal bloodlines, history carved in stone. At the back, sealed behind energy walls, was the vault. Reen hacked into the console. "Give me a few seconds." Yella looked around. The room was still, but her heart wasn't. Suddenly a voice echoed behind her. "I knew you were alive." She turned slowly. The prince who ordered her execution stepped into the light, dressed in his silver uniform, guards at his side. His smile was cold. "You should have stayed dead," he said. Ren raised his weapon, but Yella held up her hand. She stepped forward. "You feared me even as a child," she said. "That's why you exiled me." "You were always dangerous," he said. "Too proud to obey, too powerful to control." "You don't get to control me anymore," she said. He signaled the guards. "Take her." But they didn't move. One of them looked at her closely, then lowered his weapon. "I remember her father," the guard said. "He saved my city during the border wars." Another guard spoke. "She carries his eyes." The prince's smile vanished. Yella stepped closer. "This empire was built on silence and fear, but fear breaks, it already has." Reen unlocked the vault. The seal dropped. Yella walked inside and placed her hand on the central console. The system scanned her palm, then her face. Access granted. The records lit up, showing her lineage, her father's deeds, her exile. The truth. She turned the display toward the guards. "This is who I am," she said. They knelt. Not all, but enough. The prince backed away. "You can't lead them. You have no army." "I don't need one," she said. "I only need those who remember what honor is." The prince drew a blade, but before he could charge, Ren stepped between them. "You've lost," he said. The prince lunged. Ren blocked the first strike, then the second. The fight was fast, brutal. The prince was strong, but Ren was faster. He moved like water, calm and focused. With one final blow, he knocked the blade from the prince's hand and held him to the ground. Yella stepped forward. The prince stared, up, defiant. "Go ahead," he hissed. "End me." But she didn't. "You're not worth my rage," she said. "But you will face justice. Real justice." The guards took him away. Ren leaned against a pillar, breathing hard. "You didn't kill him." "No," Yella said, "because I'm not like him." She looked around the hall. Statues of kings and queens stood cold in silence. But for the first time, one of them was alive again. The halls were quiet now. Word spread fast through the capital. The lost bloodline had returned. Some bowed, some fled, some waited to see if she would rise or fall. But Yella didn't claim the throne. Not yet. She didn't need gold robes or grand speeches. She needed justice. The prince was locked in chains. His allies scattered. Ran helped uncover secret documents, hidden prisons, and stolen resources. Every truth they found made her stronger, not just in name, in purpose. But the days were long, and Ren, though steady, was growing weaker. His old wounds from the rescue had never healed properly. The blow from the beast had damaged something deeper. He refused medical help at first, said he was fine. But Yella saw the tremble in his hand when he thought she wasn't looking. One night, as stars blinked beyond the balcony of the royal spire, she sat beside him. He stared at the sky, wrapped in silence. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You made me believe I could fight again." He smiled faintly. "You didn't need me. You just forgot who you were." "I remember now," she whispered. He looked at her, eyes dim but warm. "Good, because they'll need you. The people, the forgotten, the ones like me." She gripped his hand. "Then stay. Help me build it." He was silent for a long time. Then he shook his head gently. "I was made for running, for rescue. I don't belong in palaces." "You belong wherever you choose to stand," she said. He closed his eyes, resting against the wall. "You sound like your father." She smiled. "Then maybe I'll be all right." He opened his eyes once more. "I never told you why I really came back for you." She waited. "I saw you in that arena, and I saw what they wanted to destroy. It wasn't just blood or defiance. It was hope. Real hope, the kind I hadn't seen in years." He coughed lightly, pain flickering across his face. Yella stood quickly. "Let me call the healers." He stopped her with a hand. "Not yet." She sat back down, hands trembling. "I don't want a statue," he said, "or medals, or a name in a book." "What do you want?" she asked. He looked at her with a faint, tired smile. "I just want to see what you build." She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "Then watch." In the days that followed, Yella took the council seat once, held by her father. She didn't declare herself queen. She declared herself guardian of the people. She opened the vaults, freed the prisoners, ended the old law that nearly killed her. She rewrote the code with her own hand. Reen stayed in a room high in the tower, watching from the windows as the streets below changed. Fewer guards, more smiles, flags of war taken down, banners of unity raised. One morning, he didn't rise. Yella found him in his chair, a soft smile on his face, eyes closed peacefully. He had gone without pain, without regret. She buried him beneath the old tree in the royal garden, the one that only bloomed when rain touched the soil. She stood there alone for a long time. Beside the grave, she placed two things: the old gold pendant from her father, and Ren's journal, pages filled with the names of those he had saved. On the stone, the words were simple. He remembered the forgotten and gave them back their fire. Years passed. The empire changed, grew, healed, and in every council meeting, in every law passed, in every child born free, his shadow stood behind her, breathless but never forgotten.